Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Waiting to rise again.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the moment you've all been waiting for.
Locking down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Friday. It means we're brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp. Jacob Beck and Jordan Kitchens back there on the ones and twos. Fired up. You're hanging out with us. Hope the work week is in the rearview mirror for you. If not, we'll get you to the finish line here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Preston Guy, 15 minutes from right now, talking LSU and Florida. SEC picks against the spread coming up in hour number 2. Also got to take it or leave it. Then we got final picks for Saints and Browns as well as LSU and Florida. Generally speaking, when I leave the show and the set, I go up to my office and I delete that show that we've just done, and I set up the next day's show. And I put LSU basketball at the end of hour number 1. I wanted to kind of talk about it. I figured they would probably lose on the road, as I predicted yesterday. And we would spend some time on it, but certainly not to lead the show. Well, we know what happened up there in Manhattan, Kansas. So we'll get things started the same way we do every single day, but not the way I thought we would start today.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
LSU goes to Manhattan, Kansas, and put it on Kansas State last night. The final score was 76-65, which doesn't appear like a blowout, but when you consider the fact that the home team, Kansas State, a home team in Kansas State that had been dominant in that building over Jerome Tang's 2 seasons in Manhattan, 33-4 in the Octagon of Doom, and they never threatened to win that game in the second half. That's impressive stuff from this LSU basketball team. The Tigers seized control of the game early on. They went on a 24-3 run over an 8-minute and 24-second stretch of the first half, and they never looked back. You always thought, here comes that run, here comes that run, here comes that run. And it never really came. LSU kept Kansas State at an arm length the entire game. And that's because they dominated on the floor in 2 key aspects that Matt McMahon hoped would be the identity of this team. That is, of course, defense. We've talked about that the entirety of the preseason. They brought in 3 veteran guards, all 3 of whom have really solid defensive credentials, and they hope to be better on the perimeter defensively. And they've got a more athletic front court as opposed to your Will Baker, your Hunter Deans, and they're going to be better around the rim as well. And they defended like crazy last night. Consider this shooting percentage from the homestanding Kansas State Wildcats. They were a paltry, I'm missing my number. It's 3 for, over the course of it was like 9 minutes. They were 3 for 32. There it is. Just over 16% was Kansas State over a stretch of 9.5 minutes of that game. LSU was tenacious on the perimeter. They were rejecting shots at the rim, making things tough on Kansas State to finish. K-State was 11 of 24 on layups. That's shots at the rim, under 50%. LSU was doing a great job at that point of clearing the glass, which was the second aspect of the game that LSU excelled in. LSU won the backboard 43-25 in this game. Kansas State missed 38 shots and only rebounded 8 of them. To me, the telling statistic at just how good LSU's defense was start to finish. Kansas State scored 65 points, and they only turned the ball over 7 times. It wasn't like LSU was getting steals and creating extra possessions. They were just getting down in a stance and guarding Kansas State. Now, we don't know for sure how good Kansas State is. They were in the Elite Eight 2 years ago. They were an NIT team last year, and they've got 11 newcomers on this team. So I'm not here to tell you that LSU just went on the road and beat an Elite Eight team. But Jerome Tang has done a good job there for 2 years. He brought in the number one transfer portal class in the country. He's got Doug McDaniel from Michigan. He got Brandon Housen from Villanova. He got Coleman Hawkins from Illinois. He returned David Gasson, who was a great player for them last year on a good team. CJ Jones, the transfer guard that came in. Like, they've got guys who have played high-level basketball and been good players. And for LSU to go up there on the road and control the action for the entirety of the 40 minutes was so, so impressive. I thought the play of the game came from a former Kansas State Wildcat in Cam Carter. It was in the middle of the second half, inside 10 minutes to play. Kansas State does go on a 6-0 run to cut the lead to 10 with 9:15 to play. And when you realize at that point, I'm sitting there watching it and I'm going, okay, LSU has controlled this thing and they've gotten the lead to 16, and you can kick the door in at 16. If you get it to 16 and you win the next 3 or 4 minutes and all of a sudden it's 18, 21 points with 10 to go, you can pretty much turn out the lights. LSU didn't win the next 4 minutes. Kansas State did go on a 6-0 run. And you felt like, okay, here's the run. LSU's going to have to hold them off. And with 9:15 to play, LSU got into a half-court set, and Jai Bailey drove and kicked it out to Cam Carter, who was open at the top of the key, and he absolutely buried it from three-point range to move the lead back to 13. Kansas State did go get a bucket on the next possession, but still, the fact that it went to 13 right there under 10 minutes was just kind of a back-breaking deal, and Kansas State never got it within 10 again. It was a phenomenal effort from the Tigers, really all across the board. It was so impressive to watch Corey Chest come into the game, a game that I didn't figure he would play at all in. And he comes in because Derek Fountain's unavailable, and he just owned the backboard every minute he was out there. You're talking about a guy that in 21 minutes only scored 5 points, but his impact was incredible. 13 rebounds in 21 minutes. 10 defensive rebounds. 3 on the offensive glass. Had that tip in when Jalen Reed missed on a drive. It was so impressive to watch him play his role. Curtis Givens comes in. He didn't score in his 7 minutes, but he makes a great play late in the shot clock on a little screen and roll, didn't panic, 4 seconds on the shot clock, hits a pocket pass to Damian Collins, who lays it in. So impressive. Victorious Miller had 15 points in the game in 21 minutes of action. Had a huge wide open three from the corner, but late in the game to just erase any chance that Kansas State had of coming back. I was so impressed with LSU's young players. Those are all 3 freshmen. Chess is a redshirt freshman, but Victorious Miller and Curtis Given, true freshmen on the road, playing impact minutes. And then you have your 2 guys in the in the back court that are going to have to make this thing go, and they did. I thought Jordan Sears and Cam Carter were excellent. I would like to tone the turnovers down with Sears. He had 5 of them, but he offset that with 5 assists. He did not miss a free throw. He made 3 of his 7 threes. He scored 15 points, had 2 steals, and pulled down 7 rebounds at 5'11". Cam Carter, going back to Manhattan, didn't force the issue. Made a couple of big early threes, one from the right wing, one from the corner late in the shot clock over an outstretched defender. And then the dagger that I talked about, well, not a dagger, but a huge shot under 10 minutes. He goes for 20 points in this game in 34 minutes of action, 6 of 11 from the floor. Those 2 guys combined for 35 points and 7 assists. I thought they were fantastic. I did miss on Jalen Reed in this game. He has not, to this point, had the impact I kind of thought he would in this season, and it's still young. It's still
the
early.
last 2 games. The first game he was
great, but they couldn't. They didn't have
a chance.
Anybody tall enough to guard him. So, but the play he made, driving down the right side of the lane to lay it in midway in the first half, when he does that, you go, why doesn't he do that every time? He's so big. He's so athletic. He gets up above the rim. He can finish over just about anybody there. He just hasn't done that as much as I thought he would.
I thought the same thing last year when they beat Kentucky. He was so good in that game, and they didn't have anyone that could guard him. I'm like, man, this guy is really talented, and he could score. But there's just some games where he goes missing.
And then doing some of that stuff that I thought he would do, you have Damian Collins who comes in, 5 of 5 from the floor, had a couple of dunks. He's altering shots at the rim. and he pulls down a few rebounds, and he's a guy that is, you don't expect a McDonald's All-American to take a bench role and excel there. That's generally not the way we think about a lot of these star players. But he has, and he's okay with it. And that's what LSU's going to have. I still don't see an NBA star popping on this team right now. But they do have a lot of guys that understand their role. Jordan Sears has got to run the show and make threes. Jai Bailey's got to defend. He's got to rebound. He's got to hit some assists. And he's got to make layups. Cam Carter's got to be the leading scorer. Jalen Reed, got to score around the bucket, rebound. Curtis Givens, spell Sears off the bench. Collins, dirty work, rebounds, layups, dunks. And same thing with Chest, rebounds, layups, dunks. And you just saw all of that on display last night for LSU. This was my tweet after the game. I said, look, 40 minutes, it does not make 4 months. You got a long way to go. But this was really encouraging for LSU last night to control it the way they did. You could see LSU going up there and winning a game where LSU made 13 or 14 threes. You could see LSU winning a game up there where Kansas State went 2 of 24 from 3. None of that happened. There was nothing fluky about what you saw last night in Manhattan. LSU got down in a stance and defended Kansas State for 40 minutes, never let up, and then everybody did what they had to do. And to do that on the road in a building where nobody really goes and wins was really, really impressive. I think LSU is a middle-of-the-pack SEC team that's going to be on the bubble. That's the way I see it right now. And this win is going to stand up in March, I believe. Even if Kansas State is a 9-9 Big 12 team, that's still going to be a high quad 2 or even a quad 1 win to go on a true road site and get that done. And the other thing that's going to do, it's going to infuse these guys with confidence. We saw last year, LSU just kind of stumble all over itself in November and December. They're going to come home with some time off. They're going to play again on Tuesday. They should win that game. And then you're going to have a tournament where you can show yourself against some more high-level competition. But I think that was a statement win last night for LSU. It doesn't say a lot, I don't think, about the program necessarily. I think a lot of people are trying to draw that out, and that's just hard to do because you don't know who's going to win the team next year. You can't name me one player that's going to be on the team next year. But for this team, this iteration of Matt McMahon's program, they've got a good combination that looks like it works well together. They're playing confidently, and last night was really, really good work. I was super encouraged by the entirety of it.
What was the biggest surprise to you in that game? Because I know what mine was.
Corey Chest. This is one of the things that I said before the season. I said, if you were to tell me that Corey Chest just didn't play for this team, I would believe that.
Yeah.
He came in and redshirted. If you were going to tell me that Corey Chest was going to play 25 minutes a night and grab a bunch of rebounds and block shots, I would believe that too. But I have no idea where it is. And if Derek Fountain is available last night, Chest may not play. But this team's identity is going to be on defense and rebounding, I think. And he does that. And if he's okay playing 15 minutes and giving you that kind of intensity, that's going to matter.
Yeah, I agree. No, mine was I think mine was Victorious Miller, though. I mean, the guy played 8 minutes in the Alabama State game, played 13 minutes in the ULM game. How could you have thought, okay, well, he's going to play 21 minutes on the road as a freshman against Kansas State? I just no way he could have saw it coming, and he played so well. He's a great shooter. I think he can help them there.
He's a talent. He's one of the guys
good.
I could look at, and I mean, again, I think he's like the fourth guard on this team.
Yeah.
But he's one of those guys I could look at and go, he could make an NBA roster.
He can eventually, yeah. I think so.
But I mean, I said this yesterday, hand up. I said, I think this is an upperclassman game. I don't think you're going to see a lot of the freshmen. Well, Miller started. Miller came off the bench, scored 15 points, and was awesome. And then Givens, who was falling all over himself in the second game. He was turning the ball over, the game completely sped up on him. He goes out there in 7 minutes, 3 assists, no turnovers.
Yeah.
He had an ugly 3 that hit the backboard, but he's not a great shooter right now. He made 3 threes in the opener, but he's not a great shooter right now. But none of the freshmen even blinked. And that place it wasn't full, but it was rocking. And that was, I just thought it was impressive. It doesn't mean you're gonna contend for the SEC championship or anything.
Right.
But I figured LSU would go up there and get beat by 12. That's kind of what I thought. And they went up there and completely controlled the action from the start. Very, very good stuff for Matt McMahon and LSU. That's the Genesis of Baton Rouge opening drive. We'll come back with Preston Guy talking some football on the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Evolve Physical Therapy and Sports, evolvept.com. We're going to talk about the Florida Gators for a lot of this show. And They could use a lot of Evolve Physical Therapy in sports because there's a lot of injured Gators over there in Gainesville. Robbie Bolton has been at this for 2 decades. Professional athletes have trusted him with their bodies. You can do the exact same thing. If you're an active person, go see Robbie Bolton when the pain comes. Pain sucks. Car accident can happen. Just an accident playing sports can happen. Slept wrong can happen. Knees, hips, back, neck, elbow, shoulder, wherever your pain may be. If it's limiting you, not allowing you to work out or play tennis or get on the pickleball court, play with the grandkids, whatever the case may be, Evolve Physical Therapy in Sports can help you. It's going to be hands-on from start to finish. Go see them. They're on Starring near Highland Road. Or check them out online, evolvept.com. It's Evolve Physical Therapy in Sports, evolvept.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp.
Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. Looking for a late lunch? Government between Foster and Jefferson. CorksFishandShrimp.com is that website. Preston Guy with us every single Friday here on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. He, of course, of TigerBait.com. Joins us now. Preston, how we doing?
Fine. I'm doing a bit better than we were Saturday evening. As Jalen Milroe almost ran me over to the locker room. But, yeah, we're doing good.
Well, you could have been the first guy to tackle him all night. You should have taken the opportunity.
Well, obviously, the media and the players aren't trained to do it. Apparently,
That was not good. How surprising was that?
You know, Hunt. Maybe I'm a little dumb for being surprised by it based on the film LSU's given us this year. But I just had faith that Brian Kelly and Blake Baker, with 2 weeks to prepare for what the number one threat with this Alabama team is, would be able to find a way to get it done. But apparently, they're just not able to do it. Maybe it's something, it doesn't matter between coaching and players on the field. They cannot stop an elite running quarterback. So maybe that's on me for being surprised.
I mean, I know you go back and watch this stuff. Do you feel like it's a scheme deal? Do you feel like it's a player's deal? Do you feel like it's just everything?
I think it's a discipline deal. I watched a few little segments, and it's like, how close they are getting Milroe on a couple times? And just one guy goes out of his lane and he gets a seam, and then all of a sudden he's got a double blocker at a place he wasn't supposed to be at, and that's kind of the deal with Milroe. So you have to play very disciplined football to do it. Maybe a little bit of scheme. Maybe they could have, scooted more guys in the box to support that, but then, you're exposing yourself to the deep ball, and I'm sure they were afraid of what Ryan Williams could do with that. So, I would say the football that they chose to play, you got to play it right and well. And sometimes, a lot of the discipline assignment, it was some of your better players. Like Braden Swinson was a guy who just allowed himself to get caught outside instead of, keeping leverage on one of Milroe's touchdown runs. It's a sad predicament, and it really makes you wonder, like, maybe this football team just will not be equipped, whether it be players or coaches. They're not going to be equipped to stop the running quarterback. That's a tough pill to swallow, but I think it's about time.
Well, let's talk about the opportunity tomorrow then. DJ Lagway is going to play, according to Billy Napier. We've seen him healthy. We don't know how healthy he is tomorrow. What's your read on how they'll use DJ Lagway and what else you can do to combat it?
Well, the thing is with DJ Lagway is you have to think that they're not going to want to push his hamstring and hurt him long term for, let's face it, a season where Billy Napier is guaranteed to keep his job. This win literally means nothing to Billy Napier at this point because he'll be here and he'll get a clean slate next year, right? So I don't think they're going to push him running the ball. A hamstring is an injury that you're good to play, but it still bothers you. So I would be surprised if, number one, they're running him, but number two, if he's fully 100% able to run.
The thing, and I agree with that on one hand, and then I look at the other side of the situation and I go, if there's a significant risk that he's going to re-injure it and this game means nothing, then why would you even put him out there? That's the part that I'm wrestling with. It feels like there could be an argument to be made that they feel like he's great if he's going to play. If he wasn't, then why even try?
Because I feel like he's probably good enough to go, but they're just going to try to adjust the game plan around him because obviously he's better than the third-string guy,
Yes.
even at 80%. So, they're looking at this as probably here's what you really get out of it. You get reps for a 5-star, true, talented quarterback. That's what you get. You get next year when DJ Lagway has to take you to Baton Rouge, right? He's played LSU before, right? You get that experience out of it. And I think they'll adjust their game plan accordingly to kind of, get him less hits. But it's probably one of those situations where look, Hunt, hamstring injuries, I'd just be shocked if that doesn't hurt him through the end of the year.
Well, then let's say, for the sake of that argument, that he has 4 carries in the game. Like, how does LSU's defense now match up with Florida?
Well, I guess that limits him to just 4 touchdowns, so that's the good news.
Good. That's 28 points. Next.
Yeah, right, exactly. So hopefully Nussmeier and the company can air it out. But, yeah, okay, 4 carries. Look, if you're limiting him to just 4 carries, realistically, you're probably not giving up a touchdown, maybe a goal line situation. But, he can still throw the ball. He's still a talented passer, so you're going to have to, bring your wherewithal. I would say, based on how this game plan can adjust based on his health, you got to come in and be able to make some coaching adjustments. If he's going back there and they want to throw 40 times this game, cool, great. If they want to, run him like wild 25 times, then okay, you should have that game plan at least prepared. I don't know if it's executed, but at least prepared based off the last 2 weeks of Alabama. So come in with that. But then you also have to understand that they might hand that off a ton. So that's how I would handle this, is be able to be flexible and adapt to what Florida's going to bring, because it's a wild card based on his health.
They're going to hand it off a ton, and that's one thing that I can be very confident in saying. So we'll see how LSU stands up to that. Speaking of quarterbacks, LSU's quarterback's in a slump. What do you make of it, and how likely is it that he comes out of it?
Well, I'll tell you what. You've got 3 really big games that you've played in this year in the SEC. Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Alabama. You're 1-2 in those games. The one you needed a miracle for, and by God, you got that miracle with some low percentage throws on the way. But the good news is he's thrown for about 1,000 yards. The bad news is he's completed about 50% of his balls with 6 touchdowns and 7 interceptions in those games. So you best believe the NFL scouts, when they're plugging in film, look, Nickel State and all that, they're not even taking a look at it. They're looking at these games, and it's not great for him. I guess the good news is there certainly are some big throws that he's made along the way, but, man, the turnovers are just so costly. I mean, it is so painful the way he's had a few of these turnovers. Think about the Alabama one where you're driving to make it a 1-score game right after halftime, and you take it to the 4-yard line, and you don't put enough air on it to a tight end who had a chance to go to the back of the end zone and get it, but instead it goes right in the linebacker's hands, and he's returning it on you. Nussmeier, I think these are coachable mistakes, and the good news is this coaching staff does have a proven track record of improving quarterback play. I mean, Jaden Daniels threw for 80 yards against Auburn in 2022. And there were times where people really wanted Jaden Daniels to open it up. There were people who thought Jaden Daniels was holding the team back, and Nussmeier needed to be the guy. So that's the good news, is the staff does have a tendency to improve their quarterback play. I'll say the difference between Nussmeier's struggles and Jaden's struggles is Jaden would take it and run for 3 yards if there was nothing there. Nussmeier has a tendency to force it in when there's nothing there, or there's something that's not quite as open as he should. And that's been the big difference. Is Jaden, the offense looked anemic at times when it wasn't clicking, but under Nussmeier, it's destructive. It's self-destructive. Self-destruction has a lot more consequences than punting the ball after 3 and out. You know what I mean?
It does, for sure. Caden Durham, 20 of 70 snaps on Saturday. I know that Mike Scarborough, if they're Tiger Braid's not thrilled with that. What do you think about it?
I mean, he got 8 carries, right? I mean, and he had the hot hand. I mean, so he runs for 45 or 55 yards on his first carry. So let's give him the ball 7 more times. Look, man, you've heard me talk about this even before the season. I remember telling you this offseason, if Josh Williams is lining up inside the 5-yard line, I'm going to be a little pissy. Well, here I am. That happened twice against Alabama, and I love Josh Williams. Best story on the team, There's nothing not to like about Josh Williams except for how his coaches choose to use him. And I have to have some serious questions about this running back rotation and how much communication is there between Frank Wilson and Joe Sloan when fitting the right personnel for the right play call. You know, are you putting Josh Williams in the goal line thinking, well, if they call, a screen, or if they, call, a pass out to him, he'll be able to catch the ball well? Or are you thinking, all right, we're going to line it up with Josh Williams and have him bulldoze some people over? I have to question that when Caden Durham's been a little muscle hamster all season. He's been the guy to fight for extra yards more so than anybody. So I'm not happy with the running back rotation. And I remember telling you last week that why do you need to rotate so many guys out when you're going to run the ball 25 times in a game and you're going to air it out 50 times? Like, what's the point of doing that much rotation? Is your best running back no longer your best running back when he's at 95% speed because he's ran the ball 3 times on a drive? I think they need to go with a heavier hand with Durham. I'm personally, I look at this as a coaching blunder, but what do I know, man?
Does LSU win on Saturday night or Saturday afternoon?
Well, you know what a great diagnosis for a team that's lost 2 straight and darn near taking themselves out of all relevancy. I thought LSU season was over until all these, I guess these hope pushers started saying, well, LSU's actually alive for the SEC championship. So I'll say darn near. How about we play a Billy Napier team in Florida who does not have their act together. Their starting quarterback's hurt. The backup quarterback's banged up. And frankly, he doesn't have much incentive to actually win this game because his job's guaranteed. That's exactly what the doctor diagnosed. Go get that, and then go get ready for what I'm expecting to be a tough Vanderbilt team. I think Vanderbilt's the toughest team left on your schedule at this point. So I think Tigers take care of business.
You can find him here every single Friday, Monday nights on YouTube on the Tiger Bait channel. Preston Guy from TigerBait.com. Have a great weekend, man.
All right, thanks for having me.
Always our pleasure. Chat with Preston each and every Friday. We'll take a time out, get you ready for the NFL slate on Sunday. It's a Football Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. When you think Genesis of Baton Rouge, you should think luxury. But when you think luxury, don't immediately go right to price tag. Genesis of Baton Rouge is luxury, but at an affordable price. I think a lot of times when you hear luxury vehicle, people think, oh, well, I can't swim in those waters. And you start thinking about different brands. Give Genesis a shot. Go by the dealership, Airline at Piku, chat with one of their brand ambassadors, get behind the wheel, see the style, see how sleek, safe, comfortable. It's a fantastic line of vehicles, and every single vehicle on the line was given an IIHA top safety pick. Some of them were top safety picks plus. Every single facet that you're looking for in a vehicle, you can find at Genesis of Baton Rouge. Just get on by and check them out. I know that most of you probably have not because they're new to the scene, only been at Airline and Piku for just over a year and a half. But you can get on by and see them, get behind the wheel of a Genesis, and get behind the wheel of a Genesis for good. It's probably what's going to happen if you do. It's Genesis of Baton Rouge, genesisofbatonrouge.com, genesisofbatonrouge.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
Friday show is brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp. You're craving a po' boy? No better spot in BR to grab one than Corks. Got the fried shrimp po' boy with those jumbo Gulf shrimp, fried catfish po' boys. Those are crispy. Got the lettuce, tomato, mayo. Awesome stuff over there at Corks. They're on Government between Foster and Jefferson. Get on by and see them. Tell them the Hunt Palmer Show sent you by. I saw Michael, one of the owners, on Saturday before the LSU Alabama game. We were dodging raindrops, but he said that they're doing fantastic over there on Government Street, and appreciate y'all for patronizing our friends over there at Corks. We tell you about them every single Friday. We still got lots to do over the next 90 minutes. Got to talk LSU in Florida from my perspective. Going to get my picks on that game, as well as the Saints and Browns. Still got to do my SEC picks against the spread. We're still hanging in there. Got some non-conference games to sprinkle in there with monster lines. I was pretty good at that early in the season, so we'll see how that goes. But right now, every single Friday, we always get you ready for the NFL slate to come. So let's do that with our tier list. Tier 4 is as packed today as it has been all year. There is some trash football going on this weekend in the NFL. Let's get to it. The Jaguars are at the Lions. Mac Jones, who is awful at football, is going to play because Trevor Lawrence is hurt. Jaguars have been fairly competitive, but they're 1-6 in one-score games, and that's why their record is what it is, and that's why Doug Peterson may be out of a job here pretty shortly. The Vikings are at the Titans. Sam Darnold has 6 turnovers in the last 2 games after really playing well out of the gate. He's playing very poorly now, and because of that, Justin Jefferson doesn't have a touchdown in his last 3 games, which never happens for him. Vikings are leaking oil, and the Titans never beat anybody, so that's some bad football. The Raiders are at the Dolphins. The Raiders, if they lose, would lose 6 straight. They haven't lost 6 straight since they went 0-10 to start 2014. Jordan Kitchens, who was their head coach when they went 0-10 in 2014?
Well, it's not hard to pick a loser. Dennis Allen.
Dennis Allen is correct. Raiders looking for history there in that perspective. The Rams are at the Patriots. Patriots win would be the first time they've won back-to-back home games since 2022. I hope they enjoyed that 20-year run of brilliance because they're a long way from it right now in New England, and the Rams aren't faring much better at this point. Colts are at the Jets. Anthony Richardson's back in. The Jets, this is one of the funniest notes I saw today. The Jets missed 20 tackles last week, so they had someone come in to do a tackling seminar for the defense and the offense. I don't know if that's going to help, but the Jets are terrible. All right, that's Tier 4. Here's Tier 3. Not great, but it's Packers at Bears, a rivalry game. The Packers have beaten the Bears 10 times in a row. The Bears fired Shane Waldron this week, and there's pretty good reason for them firing their offensive coordinator. Over the last 3 games, the Bears are last in the NFL in points per game, 9. Last in the NFL in yards per play, 3.7. Last in the NFL in third down conversions, 15%. And last in the NFL in touchdowns in the last 3 games. They have none. They haven't scored a touchdown in a month. Tough stuff there in Chicago. They may have ruined Caleb Williams. All right, better stuff. Here's Tier 2. This Sunday Night Football, the Bengals are at the Chargers. Chargers lead the NFL in points per game allowed, just 13.1 points per game allowed. The Bengals, incidentally, are 6th in offensive points per game. Big swing game here for the Bengals, according to ESPN's metrics. If they win this game, 52% chance to make the playoffs. If they lose it on the road at LA, 37% chance to make the playoffs. So a big one for Joe B, Jamar Chase, and company in Cincy. All right, the Falcons are at the Broncos. Atlanta is the worst in the NFL in terms of opponents' completion percentage. They're the worst in the NFL when it comes to quarterback pressures and the worst in the NFL when it comes to sack. That is not good on defense for the Atlanta Falcons. See if Bo Nix can have some fun. We all know that Sean Payton owns the Atlanta Falcons, so see if that continues in Denver on Sunday. The Seahawks are at the 49ers. 49ers have won 6 straight regular season and playoff games against the Seahawks. 49ers have won 6 consecutive regular season and playoff games against the Seahawks. Brock Purdy, 8-2 against division teams as a starter. See what San Francisco can do, getting Christian McCaffrey reacclimated to things on the offensive side. 2 games in Tier 1. This is the best action of the weekend. We'll start with the Ravens at the Steelers. Big-time AFC North showdown. Lamar Jackson is playing the best football in the NFL right now. 22 touchdowns to 1 interception over his last 8 games. The Ravens on the other side, not as good. They're the worst passing defense in the NFL, 294 yards per game. The Steelers averaged 30.3 points per game in their last 3, playing pretty well with Russell Wilson. That'd be a huge win for them there in Pittsburgh. In the last game, Chiefs at the Bills, really the top tier of the AFC going at it on Sunday. Josh Allen against the Chiefs, 16 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. He has played his best football regular season and playoffs against Kansas City. The Bills are on a 5-game win streak right now. They're playing good football. The Chiefs are just getting it done. They're not covering. They're 0-4 against the AFC in their last 4 games against the spread, but they're winning every single week. This game's at Buffalo. Can the Bills hang the first loss of the season on the Chiefs? We will find out on Sunday. That is your look around the National Football League. Boys, how do we like those top 2 games in the AFC? Ravens at Steelers and Chiefs at Bills.
Really good. Is Lamar Jackson going to go back-to-back MVP?
If he keeps doing this, yes. As a guy who watches Bengals games and is pulling against him, it is maddening. He is a monster out there. They can't tackle him. He's deadly accurate on the run and in the pocket. He's a monster.
Yes.
Yeah. Hard to argue with the results.
Yes.
Give me winners for those 2 games. Ravens at Steelers, Chiefs at Bills, Jordan.
Oh, it's hard because the Russell Wilson effect is kind of real right now, and the Ravens are known to do extremely well and then drop a stinker.
They lost to the Raiders earlier.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're
How did that happen?
And the Browns a couple weeks ago.
I mean, I can't claim to have watched either one of those games because we're not going to get them here, and I'm not going to go seek my way out to watch AFC North football that I'm not involved in.
Yeah.
But I watched the Ravens every time they play the Bengals, and they look unbeatable.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, but it happened.
Give me
Steelers.
winners.
So I'll probably say the Steelers because that will hurt the Ravens though if they do end up losing that game. But the Steelers notoriously have a good defensive plan for Lamar, so I'll take the Steelers.
Tomlin.
What was the other game you said?
Chiefs at Bills.
I feel like they play every year at this point. Even outside of the playoffs, they play every year. Man, if Josh Allen, you don't get this done, it might be over.
The Chiefs put a stranglehold on home field advantage if they win this game. That would be the third loss for the Bills, and they'd be 10-0. You would feel like they were the road to the Super Bowl would go through Arrowhead if they win. But if the Bills do win this game, you're within a game, and all of a sudden anything can happen kind of down the stretch. To a point that I was making about that game previously, Mike Tomlin, I don't think he's an underrated coach because everyone knows he's a great coach, but I'm amazed at what he is doing up there because you had that incredible run where you could just trust Roethlisberger even though he was hurt half the time. He'd will you and you could get to 9, 10, 11 wins.
Yep.
That's gone. That whole thing is turned over, and now it's kind of a defensive team with TJ Watt rushing the passer, and they kind of put whatever Fields, Wilson, whoever they got week to week, and they're still winning games. It's the anti-Dennis Allen.
It's so impressive because, like you said, it's the anti-Dennis Allen. You watch Dennis Allen just sit here and sit on his thumb for multiple weeks, and Mike Tomlin come around here with me, you, and Beck as a starting offense, and we're going to get 9 wins this season.
I don't quite have the speed I once had.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Hunt, don't underestimate Mike Tomlin. He'll put you in a position to succeed.
That's clear. Do we need to stop picking on Dennis Allen?
Well, you're right. The body is cold now. The body say, I'll give it a rest. I'll give it a rest,
No more Dennis Allen slander for the next at least 3 minutes while we're in commercial break. Take a timeout. We'll come back and talk about the Saints and the Browns coming up next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Boudreaux's Electrical Services. Give yourself the peace of mind to know that your power is not going to go out. In this part of the world, power outages are inevitable. We got hurricanes. We had an ice storm this year. We also have terrible drivers who run into poles. So protect yourself from all of those things with a Generac home standby generator from the folks at Boudreaux's Electrical Services. They're going to use the highest quality in tubing and wiring to get that generator installed, and they're going to do the majority of that installation underground so that it looks nice. A lot of folks take pride in the way their home looks. You don't want a huge honking generator right out there in front with tubes and wires going all over the place. They're going to make sure that it looks presentable and it's functional there at Boudreaux's Electrical. They're also going to monitor that generator 24/7. So if there's some sort of mechanical failure, or if you got kids out there that knock something over playing football and you don't even know about it, but you need that generator to respond when the power goes out, they'll know about it because they monitor the generator remotely. They'll come over and fix it so that when the power goes out, it flicks right on for you. Give them a call, 985-397-1562, 985-397-1562, or the Gonzalez store, 225-300-9389. That's 225-300-9389. Or you can check them out online. That's the easy way, BoudreauxElectrical.com, BoudreauxElectrical.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
Close out hour number 1 here on a Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. And talk some Saints Browns here. Saints, things have equalized a little bit. We talked to Luke Johnson from The Advocate yesterday. He's been around the facility this week, been around practice. And he said last week you could definitely tell that kind of a fog had been lifted. And this week it feels a little bit more business as usual. The question is that a good thing for the Saints, or did they need that emotional bump from last week? I would suggest their opponent from last week is a better team than their opponent for Sunday. The Saints took care of the Falcons in the Dome, and that's a good Falcons team. They got issues on defense, no question. But their offense is good. It's got a good quarterback. They've got a lot of weapons. And I thought the Saints defense, especially in closing out the game, did a great job on Sunday to get that done. You felt like when the Saints weren't able to finish it on offense, the defense would give it up. But they didn't. They got a turnover late, and they got a big stop on 4th down to seal the win. And Cleveland's got a great defense. And they've got maybe the best pass rusher in the sport in Myles Garrett. TJ Watt will have a thing to say about that. Trey Hendrickson would have a thing to say about that. But Myles Garrett's a monster, and Taliesin Fuanga is going to have a long Sunday afternoon trying to deal with him. He'll have some help, but that's a big concern, and that is my biggest concern with the Saints. It's not even the wide receiver play, which is not great, but I think they can make that work. You saw MVS make some plays, and you get Cedric Wilson back, and I think you can function out there, but can you block? And that's a big deal. Eric McCoy comes back. I don't want to diminish that. And it really leads into my key to the game for the Saints, which is you got to run the ball, because if you get behind the sticks, you're not going to be able to hold up. I don't want Taliesin Fuanga and Trevor Penning out there on islands dealing with this Browns pass rush that has been a nightmare for quite a few teams over the last 2 years. But if you can run it like they did in the first 2 weeks, then you can slow that down. And you can make things easier on your offensive line, which quite frankly would rather go forward than backwards anyway. So the running game is crucial to the Saints in this game. The defense, I think, is going to be fine, because I don't think Jameis is very good. And I think Jameis is going to throw it to the wrong team probably on multiple occasions. The fun thing to watch here for the Saints is you're now ushering in a new era of defensive backs. Marshawn Lattimore has locked down one side of that football field for a long time. And Paulson Adebo was great on his rookie deal. Those guys are gone. So now it's time for 2 new guys that Dennis Allen handpicked. And say what you will about Dennis Allen. Didn't win enough games. Didn't do a great job in terms of roster assembly. Didn't have his teams back. Lost the locker room, whatever. He's good at evaluating defensive backs, drafting them, and developing them. The Saints have had a plethora of good defensive backs his entire tenure. And he's handpicked Alontae Taylor and Kool-Aid McKinstry to be the next guys. And you get to start seeing that now. And we've talked about this with the New Orleans Saints. They have got to get younger and cheaper. Alontae Taylor and Kool-Aid McKinstry are young and cheap. And if they're good, you can forget about those 2 positions on the field for a couple of years and go supplement elsewhere. And Green Bay, I don't even know where that came from in my brain. Cleveland has moved on from its top target. He's in Buffalo. But they're going to throw the football. And Jameis Winston is going to put some balls up there in some tight windows where you can make plays on the ball, both with breakups and interceptions. And I'm excited to see Kool-Aid McKinstry and Alontae Taylor do that, because they're the future. It's a very, very cool thing that you'll be able to kind of watch the rest of. Very little of this Saints roster feels set. Like, I don't know what's going to happen over the next couple of years at tight end. I don't know if Kendre Miller is going to be the next guy behind Alvin Kamara. I don't know how long Derek Carr is going to be the quarterback for the Saints. I don't feel like you have a great handle on a lot of the pieces on this roster. But this can be put to bed for the next 3 years if those 2 guys are what you think they're going to be. And you used high picks on them. McKinstry higher than Taylor, but high picks. And they'll have their opportunity to make some plays in what's going to be probably a pretty average environment in the Dome. So I'm excited to watch this to an extent. Probably as excited outside of last week as anybody's been to watch the Saints in a month and a half. But you've got some opportunity, one, to see what this offense starts to look like as it gets healthier on the interior with McCoy, Kamara, and Carr back fully now. And then on defense to see what you've got on the perimeter. So I like this matchup for the Saints. I'll make my pick later on in the show, but I think they've got a good chance to win this game. Again, I don't know if that's the best thing for the franchise to win the game, but I think they've got a reasonable chance to pull this off. I think the way that they don't is that the running game doesn't work, and then you let that pass rush get going, and then I can see a scenario where Cleveland holds the Saints to 13 points, and then you might be in some trouble. Like, that's where this thing could flip. So for me, it's, do the Saints get the running game going, and what do the guys on the outside look like, kind of ushering in a new era? Any of that pique your interest over there, Jordan Kitchens?
Only thing that's really piqued my interest with the Saints is the idea of getting a top 5 pick. So
you want them to lose?
Well, I know I would like for the Saints to lose, but the odds of us losing are pretty slim to none. Like, this is the prime position.
That's an admirable position.
Oh, yeah, no, bro, when I break it down, this is a prime position where Derek Carr likes to be. The expectations are gone. Just go in there and just let it fly. He's going to let it fly to Valdez, Scanlon, and all that. When we could have used this some weeks back, but he's going to come out there and do that. Jameis, he's due for a couple interceptions. Like, I see the script. The Browns, it's going to be, it'll be nip and tuck. It's not like the Saints going to blow anybody out, but I think the Saints will pull it off and probably get the ball rolling a little bit and then crash and burn at the end. So
I think the Browns are probably going to try to run the ball a lot. The Falcons ran the ball really well against the Saints last week. I don't really know why they threw it so much. They probably could have just run the ball. They averaged 6 yards a carry. The Browns got Nick Chubb back a couple weeks ago. He's pretty good.
He's pretty good. I've heard of him.
If they can give him 20, 25 carries, I think that's the way the Browns win. And their defense just plays as well as they have all year.
I've watched this Browns defense give Joe Burrow fits for 4 years.
Yep.
They can't move the ball. And that's the recipe for the Saints.
It is, yeah.
Getting beat on Sunday if they just can't block them. And that's possible. But kind of like I was talking about with Alontae Taylor and Kool-Aid McKinstry, I think you're getting a baptism by fire by Tallahassee Fuanga, but I feel differently about it because I do like those corners and their matchups against the Browns wide receivers. I think it's going to be a long day for Fuanga, and that's okay. It's okay if in your 9th, 10th NFL game you have a hard time blocking Myles Garrett. Like that's okay if it goes like that. That doesn't mean you're a bust. That just means it's your turn that week because he does it to everybody.
All pros, Pro Bowlers, you name it.
He's a tough dude to deal with. I saw him at the Under Armour All-American game with Fournette and all those guys, the 5 for 5 day. I was like, who the hell is that guy? Well, it's 10 years later and he's still doing it. That's it for hour number 1 here. Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Presented by Coors Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. When we come back, my SEC picks against the spread. Still got to talk more LSU and Florida. We'll pause for SportsCenter. See you on the other side. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. Look, safety's a big deal in the bathroom, especially as people age. It can be a hazardous place. If you need to have non-slip floors put in, they can do it. You need to have handrails put in dangerous places like the tub in the shower, they can do it. Need to put a bench in the shower, they can do it. These are the kind of things that David Duvall and his team do all the time. So if there's someone in your life that wants to stay in the house, but maybe hazardous situation in the bathroom, let David Duvall and his team come and help. It starts with a free consultation. That doesn't cost you anything to have Dave come out and see what they can do for you. And then if you want to talk about payment, financing options are absolutely available. Get 18 months, 0% if you qualify. Start the process at OneBathAndClosets.com. You can see pictures of their great work and read the reviews from their satisfied clients. It's One Bath and Closets. You can find them online at OneBathAndClosets.com.